funeral service and real estate, I think the absolutely most important thing for a client to feel is they can trust you. Because, let's imagine if they don't think they can, they get to worry about your performance and your motivation the whole time they're being served by you.
Yeah.
If they can say, this guy's got it, he's going to be great for us, he's got the right motivation, then they can concentrate on what they're actually doing and going through. So.
Yeah. Hey everybody, I'm here with Chuck Eckberg from our Woodbury office. Chuck is the team lead of the appropriately named Chuck Eckberg Group. He's been with RE/MAX Results for 10 years. He's been in the real estate business for 20. And we're going to talk all about that.
Sounds good.
But
glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. But first, I got to ask you, where's little baby Chuck from? Where were you born?
Little baby Chuck is from the birthplace of Minnesota, Stillwater, Minnesota.
This birthplace of
Yes,
Minnesota?
the birthplace of Minnesota. That's Stillwater, Minnesota. It was the first city incorporated in the state of Minnesota. So we had the choice of either having the University of Minnesota, the state capital, or the state prison. And for some reason, we chose the state prison. I guess it kept things a little mellower, and we could keep an eye on people. So,
cheap labor.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, so I born and raised in Stillwater, and then after that, got out. Didn't realize how beautiful it was there until I traveled a bit and worked away from there.
Okay,
it's
so
a fantastic city.
I'm assuming you left around your 18th birthday
I
or something
did.
like that?
18, I went to the U of M.
Okay.
Like everybody seemed to in our family, it was almost the default measure to do that. And I was at the U of M, I can tell you, longer than my parents wanted me to be at the U of M.
All right, but I mean, back in high school, any sports or activities that you...
Yeah, I was actually, God's practical joke. I'm a 5'5" guy after a long night's sleep, and I've, been laying down and I'm taller, but made basketball my favorite sport, and I did play through my junior year, but really what I found out during a gym class, 7th and 8th grade, is I was a very fast runner. And I was really a track and field and cross-country guy.
Okay.
Captain of the cross-country team for 2 years, state ranked.
Wow.
Some pretty fast times I could compare to most people, and I still looked at other people's backs, but I was near the front of the pack for most of my races and won a lot. So.
And if you don't have the gait or the stride length, you're just working harder than everybody else.
Quick legs too. I had I was on the half mile relay team, so I ran a 200 meter, back then a 220 yard leg, but I also ran a very good half mile. So yeah, big runner, but I ran, and you worked out, I was running 10 miles a day over summers and things like this. And I think by the end of getting to college, I was just not wanting to run. So, I stayed in shape, but I didn't pursue it any further. But it was great. It was great at the time. And I think sports for young people, I think it helps, build their bodies so we have a good body for the rest of our life. And respect that for sure.
And build discipline, build that practice of discipline.
Yeah, there are, a lot of days you woke up and you didn't want to go hit the road, but you knew you needed to. So you got to be accountable to yourself and to others. It does build discipline for everything. You're right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay,
Agreed.
So then you took that discipline and to the U and joined a fraternity and promptly forgot all of it?
Blew it all up. Yeah, well, I think it was a situation where, quite frankly, didn't want to grow up. I kind of didn't want to grow up. There's you become an adult. There's a lot of responsibility. You've got, work life, the fun times go away, and, that's what happened. But I did finally get out of there and, started with General Mills and grocery product food sales and, had a very good position there.
Now, we all have fun in college, but I mean, what were you studying?
Well, that, I'll defend myself a little bit more. I changed my major 4 times. It was, political science, come from a family of lawyers, and I thought that would be the logical, path for me. But I saw that, my father was Lyle Eckberg, Eckberg Lamer's law firm out in Stillwater and Hudson, still there today. He's not with us anymore, but when I really looked at wanting to do it, he talked to me about how the law has changed, that, if one side is very adversarial, then it makes the whole situation adversarial. Back where he was an attorney where you would represent your clients vigorously, but you'd still get along and you'd be ethical with the other side. And they used to, cut deals for their clients, down at Reed's Drugstore in the back counter of the cafe. And that's what he liked about the law. So he really actually discouraged me from doing it because he didn't see me as the adversarial type. And, pretty relieved that he did take that time and coach me that way.
So, there's different areas of law where that's true. Like, I mean,
as you know,
if you're in a real estate transactional attorney, you're still working towards the common goal, and there's a lot of times where that's true. But there's plenty of other times where people will pick fights just to win, or they just think that throwing around their weight is the only way to leverage a solution. Okay, but you
so I shifted. Then I went to accounting, a little dry, and then I ended up business management.
All right.
Got out of there.
And then business management degree, General Mills.
General Mills, just got hired.
Suit and tie every day?
Suit and tie company car in thrilling locales like Evansville, Indiana. Got promoted to Paducah, Kentucky. Ooh. If anyone knows where that is.
I don't, but it sounds lovely.
It's a town in Kentucky, in western Kentucky. Little lonely, my regional manager actually had moved 17 times in 25 years, 3 times in and out of Canada. And I had, already had 3 moves under my belt in a couple of years. So it was good. I, did well, but a lot of store management, running around to stores, things like this, and really didn't know anyone. I mean, other contemporaries that were working for big corporations, in Paducah, but I was there, most of the time when I was with them.
Store management for General Mills, so like
go and meet with store managers.
Got it.
Meet with the head, the buyers of some, regional chains and, Kroger, things like this, making sure we had product placement, introducing new products, running promotions, getting them ad dollars. But there's also the unglamorous side where you go into a lot of stores that are smaller, very small, maybe, mom and pop organizations. And the least appealing job was paying them for what we call unsaleables, when products would get damaged and they'd put it in the back room and, in a box, and you'd have, broken bags of flour and cereal, and you'd go back in there and dig it out and count it, and then you write them a check. So company car, suit and tie, not always glamorous. Not always glamorous. Okay. Yeah.
I was just curious if you could tell me if you were on that side of things. Like, what happened to Red Owl?
Red Owl, I don't know where it went. Okay. Yeah.
I fondly remember
I do. That Red Owl was there, in our youth. That's right. No
but
longer.
They must have got bought out.
No longer.
All right. So how long before you realize, okay, the foodstuffs industry is not...
After my regional manager said, gee, you're on the fast track, and most of my stuff was in boxes from the last move, I just realized that wasn't for me. I'm a more of a deep root relationship guy, lover of people, and you can't really form relationships when you get moved 17 times in 25 years.
Sure.
So that was, fairly early on in the situation. Worked for a while. The highlight of all of that was meeting my future wife. She was also a General Mills grocery product food salesperson. Okay. And quickly, we met in sales training here at Minneapolis because the world headquarters are here. We met once in the first training, 30 people, random group. And then we met in another completely random 30-person group about 6 months later. And the odds of that happening with the number of hires that they had that year was 1% that we'd be in the same training class. So we definitely noticed each other the first training class, and we started dating after the second training class.
Okay.
And she was managing a territory in New Hampshire. I was managing one in Kentucky. It was back when the airfare wars were at their peak. I could fly from Paducah to St. Louis to Boston and back round trip, $169 round trip on TWA.
Wow.
Yeah. So thank God the timing was good for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was going to say, not like you can text her or slide into those DMs, right?
Wasn't like that at all. No cell phones, nothing like that. Okay. Really. Yeah.
So you looked ahead and you said, I don't want to move because moving is annoying and terrible. And I just would rather make other people do that. So I'm going to go into real estate, and I'm just going to watch everybody.
Yeah. Good point. Right.
So was it?
Well, we romantically quit on the same day.
Okay.
And turned in our resignations, and then she's a New York girl. Decided, we fell pretty fast and hard. We were pretty sure. Mm-hmm. So we had those earnest conversations pretty early, and we decided it'd be better to raise a family in Minnesota, and so we ended up moving here.
Okay.
But then I hit a period of time where I was in other sales positions and increasingly becoming disenchanted with it. Had some situations where, not to be too negative, but sales managers were representing that their products would do certain things to us as sales representatives, and then we would find out as we represented those products and got real deep into it that those products couldn't deliver some technology stuff. I won't use the name, but so it kind of became increasingly disenfranchised by that career choice.
Sure.
And I think what happens is if we get empty and open enough, sad enough, lose our path, we get super open to whatever might come along next. And literally, I said to God, I'm so confused. I'm not getting anywhere. I don't feel like I'm contributing. I'm not finding my path. I'll explore anything you put in my path. And so 2 weeks later, while I was working at just jobs for money and not vocation, had some part-time jobs, wasn't happy. And by this time I was, in my, like 30s, early. Somebody came back from a funeral and said the funeral director was so great with the family, he reminded me of you. And I looked up the sky and I said, God, I didn't mean everything. But I did keep my promise that I took that clue as a sign and I started to explore it. And
being a funeral director.
Being a funeral director.
Okay.
And so for me, what I figured out with General Mills, I could sell the end cap display and 100 cases of Cheerios. But I realized quickly I wasn't feeding the world. Yeah. If I hadn't sold that end aisle display, General Foods or Kellogg's would come along and sell it. There wouldn't be a lack of food. I didn't feel like I was making a definite difference for the people I was serving. And what I realized through funeral service as I started to consider it is that I could have a one-on-one interaction with, another human being, another family, that I could make a profound difference for them. And so, tough stuff, married by then, had a house, no kids yet. But my wife went back for her PhD at the same time, and I went back to school to get a mortuary science degree from the U of M.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was 19 months of working at Wernis Brothers Funeral Chapels, which later on, at the end of my funeral service career, I was general manager of. Mm-hmm. But I worked there at night. I got up at 3 a.m. every morning for 19 months and delivered newspapers for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune and Woodbury, my city. And then I went to school during the day. It was brutal. But I will never regret that decision, and extremely gratifying work. And I did it for a decade. Most people burn out. Some of these people that stay emotionally available to their clients as funeral directors, and they work a long career. Jim Bradshaw gave me my start. He's one of them who I have the ultimate respect for. That, they can stay in it and be with their client families, even though every time you're working with a client family, you get singed a little bit. You get burned by that, that pain and that just being around the environment and counseling those people. But for me, 10 years was plenty.
Okay.
And so I decided to get out of that. And then I got to another point where I went, what am I going to do with my life? I mean, really, empty again. Stayed home with my middle son, Noah, in kindergarten for about a year, and knew that wasn't a long-term thing. Mm-hmm. But I asked my immediate family, what should I do now? And they said, you'd be a really good realtor. And I said, how dare you? My perception of that sales type was not very positive.
Okay.
we get a reputation, right? Because some of us, I think are way too aggressive. I mean, try to get people to do something. It's not our job to try to get people to do anything. It's our job to fully inform people, give them all the options, and then when they say go, bring the full quantity of what we have to give and all of the services that we can provide to help them get there. But I talked to a few people that I did have some respect for, and I saw that I could do it, in a way that had, a lot of integrity, and in a way that, fit me. I mean, I don't like getting, we all get them now. I mean, incessantly, these sales calls on our cell phones and, buy this, I'm selling you this, I'm selling you this. Nobody likes it. I don't know why some of the sales trainers teach us to do that to our potential customers. It's never been my way. So really took more of a slow build approach and trying to do things properly and with integrity and always trying to provide better service than other agents do. And that's what's, made me succccessful. But didn't happen right away.
So that's really fascinating. So, I mean, you went from selling actual physical, but first it was maybe...
Were you going to say plots?
Yeah, no, foodstuffs and stuff to other, sure. You didn't name what it was, but other, physical goods, selling a product.
Yeah.
To then, in funeral services, I mean, you're really sort of... The product you're selling is an experience of sort of catharsis and sort of spiritual.
Mm-hmm. And that,
I don't even know how to describe it. But how would you describe what that was?
It would, the best word for it is a ministry. I think done properly.
Okay.
Without a profit motive, really. I mean, and certainly funeral homes need to be profitable so they can be there for the next family that needs them. So that wasn't, I'm not afraid of making a profit, or was I as a general manager, but it was more of creating an environment where people can, fully grieve. And, as a funeral director, we use the term funeral director. That's the nice word. I'm actually a licensed mortician. I've let my license lapse. So I also did the non-living side too, where, I've embalmed probably over 400 people, making removals. So it was a full experience, depending on the funeral home I was at. Started off with Jim Bradshaw, did my practicum at Simonet Funeral Home in Stillwater under Robert Correa, and then worked with Jim Bradshaw for a couple of years, got hired away by another firm, Peterson Stolberg, and then was hired as general manager to run the 3 Wernes Brothers chapels as general manager. 42, employees directly reporting to me. You didn't do it for the money.
Yeah.
You did it for feeling that you're making a positive difference in other, other lives. That's what you did it for. And so, it requires a lot of emotion. You also have to be a very poised performer because you don't get to do the funeral again.
Right.
It's always, you're always on, and I could be up, not often, but pretty often, where I'd be up all night and I'd have to be, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready at 10 a.m. to lead that funeral for, 300 people. So,
sure.
And then you get back from the funeral, you grab a quick lunch, and then you're sitting down with another family to make a funeral arrangement. Mm-hmm. So, extremely demanding. But my wife identified something with me about year 9, and the pager goes off and you get the first call if you're on call. And by this time I was Washburn McGreevy had purchased Wernes Brothers, so I was with Washburn McGreevy and then worked part-time and took a first call, talked with the client family. Their loved one just died, went through what the process is. We'll meet at the funeral home, here's what we need, here's what we go through. And I hung up the phone, and my wife said, they could never tell, but you're a little less engaged with this family than you were. And what was explained to us when we went through, the U of M, is that there's a number of ways to cope with this. Some people can stay emotionally available, like Jim Bradshaw, some of these longtime people that continue to serve after decades and are great with their clients. But many of us start to wall off emotionally. Many of us turn to drugs and alcohol. high rate of suicide in the field. But I was starting to wall off from my clients. And when you become, just having a, just a ritualized way and not being connected to your client family, they can feel that.
Yeah.
Anybody could. And so I didn't want that. So it was time to get out.
And that's, I can imagine that's like the idea of, doing the embalming and everything else that comes from a position of trust, right? Where they trust you to
Absolutely.
do the things that they can't and don't want to do.
Right.
And if you don't connect with them, if you're not invested in them, they're not going to necessarily trust you to do.
Your point is a great one, and I think that's what I say about. Funeral service and real estate. I think the absolutely most important thing for a client to feel is they can trust you. Because let's imagine if they don't think they can, they get to worry about your performance and your motivation the whole time they're being served by you.
Yeah.
If they can say, this guy's got it, he's going to be great for us, he's got the right motivation, then they can concentrate on what they're actually doing and going through. So.
Yeah. Well, we're in a different market than we were even 6 months ago, right? We're in a different market now where I think clients, sellers, maybe, and buyers too. Rates going up, potentially listing prices coming down. They're feeling, the uncertainty. They're feeling the fear that they mistimed the market, that they're being sort of disadvantaged by either they're paying too much or they're going to net too little. But if they trust you, they will trust that it's not your fault. It's not for lack of trying on your part. It's a variable that you couldn't control. Whereas I think that what's really is happening is there are agents out there that are not investing in their clients enough, where the trust isn't there. And when the trust isn't there, questions are asked or motives are questioned, or things like that, or qualifications, intelligence, or what have you, is sort of questioned.
Yeah, and I don't meet with my clients with ever the idea of like, got to get them to sell, got to get them to buy. It's a consultation. It truly is. And, I get a number of referrals from people, especially back in the last downturn when people would call me and say, Chuck, is my house going to be worth $1 someday? My God, it's dropping like a rock. And I'd calm people down and say, no, that's not going to happen. We're not going to be living in a cave soon, anytime soon. Said, if you can wait, 2-3 years, if that works in your life plan, try to wait. And I can tell you, some of those people haven't moved yet to this day, but I've gotten plenty of referrals from those people because they tell their family and friends, hey, I found a guy that you can trust, that is going to tell you what's good for you all the time, never what necessarily is good for him or, causes him to make a sale. And I've always hung my hat on that. This work is not about me, not about my profit, not about that. It's always about what's best for that family at the time. So I'm sure that I ask more questions when I first sit down with a person or a family than other realtors do. I want to know what you're seeing, what you see ahead for yourself. Does it fit in your life plan? Because that's really what should be the chief dictator of that. So
I got to imagine, the similarity. Maybe another one's you're just answering their. Well, you're asking questions, but you're also answering their questions. Both.
Sure.
What happens next? My loved one dies. What happens next? But also, I want to sell. What happens next?
Right.
And you're just asking questions so you can answer their big question.
Right. I mean, and you're some people say, boy, it's really different from, what you did before. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's a transition through an emotional life-changing event.
Which
both the same.
Real estate is one. I mean, I'm not going to equate the two or put the two on balance, but a loss in the family to real estate. But they're sure a heck of a lot closer than buying a fridge or
absolutely.
I guess doing a lot of other things. I mean, real estate can be extraordinarily emotional.
Mm-hmm. It can.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and I've worked. I've met one-on-one with families now for coming up. 30 years, sitting around a table with them, really focusing on them. And just for me, that's what's necessary for me my motivation is, somewhat going into try to really save and try to help people. Mm-hmm. So that was a perfect transition for me. I didn't realize how perfect it would be until I started actually doing the work and seeing what good I could do that way. Mm. So, yeah.
So, how long did you, like when you got started in the business, did you, were you just a solo? Did you have any, in real estate, did you have a mentor or a team or somebody that kind of guided you along the way?
The places to start, at least, back then I thought I wanted some good training. And I think Edina Realty and Coldwell Banker was definitely a candidate too. But I interviewed with both. Both certainly wanted me to jump in. And I, started out in a cube and then worked up to getting a window eventually, and then I got down on the first floor with a little bigger office, and I had some, very good mentors that, understood me and, had a high amount of class in how they proceeded in their business. Dixie Ewing was a big mentor to me at Edina Realty. She's still active, but couldn't respect her more. Later, I got to know Chuck Brooks from RE/MAX Results. Mm-hmm. Those are two people that just do the right thing for the people they're serving. They shove aside any kind of thought of income for them. And so that fit very well. And I happened to, share a wall with Dixie, and she would, I'd come in sometimes. I remember back in the day where, it always seems that when the market's expanding and like, everybody wants to be a realtor, right? Mm-hmm. So people run into real estate, and this one family called me in my neighborhood, knew me, friends, and said, Chuck, we want you to, sit down with us. We're thinking about selling. And I, had the long presentation and things like this. And as I was leaving, they said, thank you so much. Thank you so much for meeting with us, but we can't list with you. My brother-in-law's a realtor, and I just wanted to, he's new, and he wanted to make sure that, he was doing most of the right things that you do. And I kept my cool and said, well, good luck to you. Hope it goes well. And I went back and I said, what's going on? How can we do that? And Dixie calmed me down, and she said, just stay in proportion. Just keep doing the good work, and, things will work out fine. So, yeah. Yeah. But in about year 5, I started looking year 5 there. Actually had a very good meeting with Mr. Bill Saunders, who's not with us anymore, of RE/MAX Results. And he and John Colopy were partners at the time, and he had made me an offer, a very generous one, to come aboard. And what I heard from a number of different people, kind of outside of real estate, was that you don't know what the Edina brand can give you. You don't want to go out there. And I think these big brokers are real good at making you think that if you go outside that protective fence, you're the sheep in the fence. And if you go outside that fence and you're not an Edina realtor anymore, you're going to get eaten by the wolves. But by about year 10, I realized that it wasn't the place for me anymore. Sorry, but money gets driven to the top there. Yep. And here, Mr. Colopy, it's all about the agents, and was the most fantastic feature of this company, and still is. And by that time, Bill had died. His son Marshall had taken his ownership share, and I went to Marshall and I said, I had an offer like this. Nothing was in writing. I was authentic about it. Mm-hmm. And he trusted my word, and I came aboard, and it's been a revelation. I can tell you, other agents who are listening that are not RE/MAX Results agent, don't be afraid to come to RE/MAX Results. the wolves won't get you if you leave the fenced area under these other big brokers' protection.
Yeah.
It's more, certainly they look at the broker. Our client pool looks at who holds our license, but it's really a following that you generate and develop for yourself.
It's your name.
Yes.
It's your brand.
I think the majority of it, but the environment that we're here, and I don't mean to get all excited about RE/MAX results, but I really am. Having having me as their client center, everything's about me to help my business grow and to support me. It's fantastic. And, I don't think we can find it anywhere else. And I'm not being paid to say this.
Yeah.
And I was promised this, and I've felt this every day, and it's a real thing. So it's been wonderful. It's also, less expensive to be a realtor at RE/MAX Results than it is at Edina Realty or the big brokers. So anyway.
So did you start your team at Results?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And, I've had a reluctance to start a team. There's a perception of you start a team and, I'm the rainmaker, and then I hand off to somebody on my team. Very careful to tell everyone I don't hand off. I don't do that. A team is more of a mutual support situation. So I was lucky enough to meet a gentleman named Noah Thompson, who was not a realtor at the time, but we were in the same networking group. I watched Noah. Noah's mother is a realtor in Wisconsin. And I watched Noah and observed him, and Noah explained that he had some interest in becoming a realtor. And that was the first person on my team. I did have admin support, some good people doing that. But right now we're actually in the process of growing our team. But again, not in a top-down situation, not in a, I'm going to be the team lead and you're going to work for me and I'm going to take, the majority or, a significant portion of your commission. We're looking at more of a partnership model.
To share, allocate time and
to share ideas, to share an admin, to share creative,
okay.
To understand that one person can't do it all in this. If you're really trying to deliver a maximized level of service, it's an impossibility, really.
And have a life.
And have a life.
Right. You can do it, but you're going to burn out.
And my life got significantly better from a livability standpoint when Noah Thompson and I, joined up together. So we're looking at more of a peer situation, talking to people now, but it's not a top-down thing. I don't want to have a team where they look up to me or I necessarily manage them. It's more, I want to work with people that I have a high degree of respect for as realtors, and hopefully they feel the same way about me, and we have creates a synergy and a shared pool of resources and ideas. For instance, I'm an older guy. The tech stuff, these younger people just boom, 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 just like that. I understand that's a need for me where, they need certain things from me that I do well. So.
And I would I imagine certainly include your expertise and experience in the industry and probably a very sophisticated soft sales sort of service.
Yeah,
a lot of S's there, but I mean that that is a skill set that a lot of people need to hone over a long period of time.
Yeah, and I think there's durability to the way that I've done this. I've lived in Woodbury since 1990. Youth coach for 11 years. You don't coach other people's kids if you're not, in it for their kid. You're not used to do something with my kids, and they all played sports when they were younger, and I said, sorry, but when I'm coaching you, you're never going to start the first game of the season. I'm not going to do that. So that kind of thing. Yeah. Making sure that people know that you're in it for them as well, and doing the right thing long enough, and doing it well. People find a safety with me, and there's nothing better than, you can walk into a house on a listing appointment where you don't know people, and, they kind of, most are friendly, but they have some wariness about them, versus going back to the house that you sold to a client 8 years ago and they're ready to see, and you just get a big hug at the door. I like to tell people, I don't lie. I'm a very honest person. If I don't want to answer your question, I just won't answer it. I'll be polite, but I won't. So I keep confidentiality. But, I don't want cabbages thrown at me in the Cub Foods, get hit in the back of the head. I want a hug in the aisle, not otherwise. So, you get what you earn out there as far as, the affection you have from other people. And so I've tried to be worthy of that.
So what's the goal? What's the end goal with it as you try to grow your team? Is there a number in mind, or are you really just sort of open to the idea of the right person, the right fit to expand your?
Yeah, the way I evaluate people, if I think your primary motivation is money, I don't want to work with you. I think that diverts us from our fiduciary duty, if that's our primary goal, because our fiduciary duty states that we always have to act in the client's best interest. And if we start thinking about what our best interest is, we're not doing that. We're violating our fiduciary duty. So my first litmus test is, do you sincerely care about the other person? So if you can get past that little gate with me, then I think the rest can be taught. But, certainly want to look at energy, intelligence. And I have an image of running side by side as we would in a cross-country team, running 5 across, running toward the goal together. So that's the goal. And, to put it in a cynical way, the more people that we can serve, the less people will be served by realtors that aren't worthy of serving them.
Sure.
So it's more of a kind of a crusade, even a mission that I see, that I've always felt that in my heart. If I can get out there and serve as many people as possible, and we know that at least those folks have been well taken care of. I'm not saying there aren't other good realtors, but there are a lot of realtors that shouldn't be doing this work too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're right. There's that inherent conflict, right? We owe fiduciary duties to our clients, and at the same point we do have to put food on the table for our own sake. But I think there's so many times in my experience when the most respect I have for an agent is when they tell me a story and they either told their client no. Right? This is the wrong move. Like, don't buy this house.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Or where they actually have walked away from business.
Yeah.
And they said, that's not worth my time, or it's not, we don't fit. And yes, it's a sale, but I'm not willing to put myself through that for someone that I can't work with. Because it's not about the sale, it's about the service. Right. It's about the relationship.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and it hasn't happened, I find most people to be ethical, but I've had people say, I've had wet basements and I don't want to disclose it, this and that. I've walked away from a couple situations. I have kept an eye on them when they list with another realtor and made sure it's on the disclosure. And the one example pops to my head where I called the state commerce department because I knew what I knew.
Yeah.
And you're not out there as a seller. You're not out there to hoodwink anyone. You're out there to, deliver a home that is, safe for them and good.
And it's the largest purchase someone is going to make, right? I mean, that's why there's all these laws that are built around it.
That's right.
Why we have, as realtors, fiduciary duties and ethical obligations. I mean, there's so much that can go wrong,
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things to remember is Abraham Lincoln once said that no man has a good enough memory to be a successful liar. Pretty good one, huh? Keep that in mind. How can you keep track of all those things out there? That'd be impossible. It's not So
Lincoln. All right.
There we go.
Put that on the list. Biographies I got to read. So one thing I was scoping you out Facebook and I just I made this note. So I saw a picture that you'd posted not too long ago. Maybe somebody on your team did it for you, but it was kind of a side-by-side comparison of a house in the summer and then a listing in the wintertime. Right. It's all white. The sidewalk needs to be shoveled. And the idea came to me that, okay, so we are literally and figuratively seeing a cooler market out there as we're approaching, it's October now, approaching November. As we are looking at going into another winter, maybe looking at a transition into a different market. How do you, in your experience, sort of pivot, and how do you talk to your team about that? What do you think about the next year, 6 months that we're looking ahead towards?
Yeah, there's some consensus, I think, on what prices are going to do. They've already drifted down a little bit. Mm-hmm. There is. I have some strategic thinkers as clients that we were thinking of listing, in the early spring or late winter. Maybe some of those houses I was showing that, we had the summer picture of the outside. Mm-hmm. Those folks are thinking about listing now because they see sellers that are motivated. These are people that are going to sell a house that's less expensive and buy one that's more expensive. So the move up buyer. So I see some of that, but I do think that prices will adjust some. I don't see that. Some people are forecasting, big, like 30%, 35% reductions in, overall value. I don't see that. Stats, 42% of 20 to 30-year-olds still live with their parents at home. Mm-hmm. We're 5.5 million housing starts behind as a nation, mm-hmm. where we need to be to house everyone. So we are in an affordability crisis. It got, out of hand. We're just priced out of the market. Great stat. You bought a $450,000 house last year with 20% cash down, 80% mortgage. And if you did the same thing now at current interest rates, your monthly payment went up by $1,000 a month. So we are in an affordability crisis. But I think that as prices come down some, you'll have those people that are the most, urgent buyers that really do want to buy. They'll start nipping at those. So I don't think you're going to have a wholesale collapse. We don't have the funny money in the mortgage industry that we had back in 2005 and mm-hmm. 6 and 7. But I think prices will adjust maybe 10, 15%. But we do have the, as Ross Levin in the Star Tribune wrote a couple months ago, it's a great line, the anchored sellers. Sellers are anchored to an idea of what their house value was in June.
Yeah.
And trying to help them understand that, sure, you can wait to sell at that price, but you might be waiting 5, 7, 10 years to do it. Maybe it's better to take the gain now, right? That stock that boomed, Mm-hmm. Another example that was in the paper with Ross Levin. Take the gain now rather than, wait for it to come back because you can't, your heart is hardened so much that you can't face the fact that you won't sell as much, as Sally or Bill did down the street.
Yeah.
It's going to be a while before that comes back.
Yeah, and they have to, quite literally, those sellers who waited too long. Yeah. And they missed it, they have to go through the stages of grief.
Yeah, it is.
They have to. And it doesn't happen overnight. They don't just automatically say, $80,000. Oh, well, I'm going to list it. They have to, doom scroll on the internet and read all the articles and try to figure out, who was wrong here. And it's timing. It's everything else that they contributed to it. And none of us know when these things shift, but they just happen.
Yeah, I mean, the smart mortgage person, too, will not predict what rates are going to be in a year. I mean, mm-hmm. the smart ones don't predict that. They don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. We can only look at this moment of time and what works for your family and, don't get anchored to what might have been before. Yeah. Talk about the now. What is it now for you?
And I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear. And just have someone like you to talk through those things. Because you're right. Rates have gone up. For the affordability issue is a challenge. And I know when I was, first buying my first house, $1,000 would have been, a real challenge, right? But if you can afford it, and then rates drop and you refi, suddenly mm-hmm. that, savings that you would realize with the refi at that point when they say date the rate, right, and marry the house.
Date the rate.
You now that you have that budgeted, now you can sort of expand that out to maybe making improvements on other things. And it's like, sure. Can you budget to get to that point, whether it's 2 years from now or whatever, where the rate comes back down. And it's just having someone to be able to do the numbers, answer those questions, right? And because the rate number sounds so scary,
right?
6% just sounds so scary because we've learned that 2% was a thing for a minute,
right? For a minute, yeah. Our clients, if you look at a wave, very high, highs and lows. We have some highs and lows as realtors, but what we're there to do is to knock the tops off of the highs and knock the bottoms off of the lows and try to help people keep perspective and, assure them that, the sky isn't falling. Mm-hmm. It's not.
So as you look ahead, is there anything in your business or personal life, I guess we can ask, that you're looking forward to in the next year, something that's big on your horizon?
Yeah, I've got 3 adult children. 2 of them are getting married next year.
Ooh.
Trying to get my middle guy to commit so we can go 3 for 3 in 23. But Josh, my oldest, and Maggie, my youngest, are getting married. Noah's in the middle. I don't think we'll get 3 for 3, although Noah's dating pretty seriously. So 2 weddings.
2 weddings.
2 weddings.
How far apart?
Respectfully far enough apart that one in May, Maggie's getting married in May, and she was the first one engaged, so she got to kind of pick the date, and then Maggie and Tom in May, and then Josh and Emily in October.
All right.
Yeah, it should be.
So you're going to wear, here's a question, dad to dad. Are you just buying one suit?
We're going formal tuxes on Maggie and Tom's wedding in May. Decision hasn't been made yet in October. Josh and Emily are a little less formal than maybe Maggie and Tom are. We'll see. But I've been saving, been putting money away. It is as almost absurd the costs as you've heard reported to you by others. Mm-hmm. But hopefully it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I've been married for 34 years, so I'm optimistic it can be a blessing to my kids as well. So,
yeah, well, I think the world needs more, a little bit louder now, a little dancing, a little bit of that stuff, and getting people together and having some fun again. We'll have some good days there, and so, but building this team and running with these contemporaries of mine, and I truly, it's been 20 years, and it hasn't always been easy. The downturn was tough. It's when you call, your 7 listing clients and tell them they're all going to make less in their house than they thought. I mean, back in 2008, 9, 10, those times were tough. But, you understand some perspective. And I'm even more excited now as a realtor than I was before because I can really, really deliver even more and more. And I, somewhat humble and shy about saying, I'm good at this. Yeah.
We're not supposed to tutor. I'm a, Catholic guy, right? We're not supposed to toot our own horn. But, after 20 years of successful real estate experiences and, a lot of people supporting me and saying you are really good, I think it's time to get out there and be able to say, here's what you do. Yeah. Here's how you do it right. There's a lot of ideas about this, but here's what's worked for me. And you've got to invest in other human beings in your community. Not for the sole purpose of trying to sell them, a house, but be a good member of your community, care about the people around you, do good work out there. And, I want to keep doing that. My energy and health is still great. And I'm excited about it.
Well, you don't have to say it. I'll say it. Chuck, you're really good at this.
Thank you.
I think
Thank
you. It's been fascinating to hear more about your backstory because it's very clear that the path that you took, the things that you picked up along the way in other lines of work, has dramatically impacted your success now that you're having.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's circuitous. Mm-hmm. I can say that. A route as it was, you kind of look back and you go like, and people say God has a plan. You can kind of see how it can add up sometimes. And, it's especially important for young people maybe to hear this. It's like, I was confused, bothered, bewildered, almost hopeless, but I always had that little spark. Just be persistent. It's the one word I can say. Be persistent, keep doing things, stay active. You'll find your way.
Yeah. And it's all pieces of the puzzle more than a straight line. It's just adding to the.
It adds up.
Adding it to who you are as a professional and everything else. So as we close out, I know you mentioned a few people that came along the way. Is there anybody else in your personal life, professional life that has contributed to your life that you want to just take a moment to acknowledge?
Wow, that's a great one. For me, I give my parents, Lyle and Peggy Eckberg, every bit of credit. Really, they taught me about what it really is. My father is a very successful but people-oriented lawyer. I mean, I found out about all these great things that he did after he died because he couldn't tell us about it because it was confidential, and he wouldn't talk about his clients. And my mother was, just the embodiment of love. Really taught me how to really, love and give it all. And I'd have to give credit to my wife. She's fantastic. She's a wonderful partner, and we're a very tight family. I marvel at my family. My father-in-law, David Kruder, died a couple months ago, but 92 years old, and I'll tell you, he, as much as we'd have our, interesting discussions about things, he showed us the way to live and really love family, and to gracefully exit. He knew he was propped up by a lot of meds. God bless modern medicine. I mean, he was on 9 different medications, and they, stopped working. And he was as my son Josh says, the final arbiter of his passing. And he went out in a dignified, measured fashion. He knew what was happening, and he meant a lot, more than I thought. More than I thought.
Wow. And for someone who had professionally worked in that line of work, to still be, I guess, taught, and learn about that, just shows how profound and important those moments are.
He was quite a gentleman, a gentleman. Yeah.
Well, Chuck, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me, Ed. I've really enjoyed it.